Since you're just a good-for-nothing wife who can only clean up, get to it right now. That was my mother-in-law, dumping all the post-typhoon cleanup of our farmland on me alone. Those words finally snapped my last thread of patience, and I left their house. I figured if a good-for-nothing wife who could only clean up left, it surely wouldn't make any difference. However, it didn't take long for my husband and mother-in-law to realize that wasn't the case at all. My departure threw their family farm into absolute chaos. My name is Nellie. I used to work as a business consultant, but I quit my job when I got married and now help with my in-laws' farm at my husband's request. I had just entered my 30s, and while it was the most enjoyable period of my career, I made the decision to resign for the sake of my loving husband and what I thought was a kind-hearted family-in-law. I was determined to start fresh and work hard to support my husband. When I first got married, I never could have imagined things would turn out like this. The first strange thing I noticed was my mother-in-law's attitude. Before marrying my husband, I had the impression that she was a very kind person. She always showed consideration for me and spoke to me gently, so I felt reassured that we would maintain a good relationship after marriage. However, once I married her son and moved in, her attitude changed completely. She transformed into a demon of a mother-in-law, treating me like a housekeeper by forcing all the housework on me and working me to the bone in the fields. Between adjusting to life with my in-laws and the physically demanding farm work I had no experience with, I was already struggling. Add to that my mother-in-law's cold words and attitude, and it became unbearable. I tried talking to my husband about his mother. It really hurts when your mother treats me that way. I understand, I'll talk to Mom about it properly, he said with a reassuring smile. But in reality, he only gave her a gentle warning. While he pretended to be on my side, he actually didn't do anything about the situation. My husband, who I had suspected was somewhat of a mama's boy, turned out to be severely attached to his mother. I grew increasingly frustrated with him as he would say non-confrontational things to me while clearly taking his mother's side. Farm work isn't just about working in the fields, there's also computer-based administrative work like managing sales, which both my mother-in-law and husband dumped entirely on me. Boy, we're so lucky you're good with computers, Nellie. Oh, by the way, could you also set this up for me? Both of them were technologically challenged and uncomfortable with machines, so they were constantly asking me how to use their smartphones and adjust settings. As a result, I had access to their email addresses and account information, which made me feel uneasy, even though I had no intention of misusing it. I vented about this situation to my brother, who lived relatively nearby and kept in regular contact with me. Sounds tough, he said with a carefree laugh after hearing my complaints. Easy for you to say. How are things with you lately? Are you working hard? Oh, actually, I quit my job a while back. Now I'm living the easy life as a NET. His casual response left me more exasperated than surprised. Despite my difficulties with my in-laws, I gradually began to find fulfillment in farming. I enjoyed watching the crops grow, and it made me happy when people bought our produce and said it was delicious. It gave me a similar sense of satisfaction to when I worked as a business consultant, and I became increasingly invested in farming. Still, being forced to handle everything was overwhelming, so I started thinking about ways to improve efficiency. While I couldn't come up with many ideas for the actual farm work due to my lack of experience, I was familiar with creating systems and handling administrative tasks. So, I began considering more efficient ways to sell our harvested crops. Around that time, my husband caught a bad cold and had to be hospitalized for about a month. I tried to visit him between my busy schedule, but for some reason, my mother-in-law kept preventing me from going. Where do you think you're going? You haven't finished tending to the fields yet, have you? Clean and put away those farm tools properly. You're so incompetent. My mother-in-law started dumping even more work on me, including non-urgent tasks and difficult jobs that my husband usually handled, making it impossible for me to visit him. During my husband's absence, her attitude toward me only worsened, and I endured hellish days of endless work alone with her, feeling like I was under the thumb of a demon. I spent each day wondering why I was being treated this way and if my mother-in-law's pre-marriage kindness had all been an act. After a month, my husband was finally discharged from the hospital. The first thing he did upon returning home was ask me how to update his smartphone. During my hospital stay, I got this update message and didn't know what to do with it. "Why didn't you come visit me?" he asked, slightly sulking. I gave him a wry smile and looked at his smartphone screen. That's when I noticed unfamiliar app icons on his home screen and felt something was off. My husband was tech illiterate and couldn't, or wouldn't, install new apps by himself. The presence of new apps meant someone else had accessed his smartphone while he was hospitalized. Since I hadn't been allowed to be involved in his hospital stay at all, I had no idea who could have handled his phone. Something about this bothered me, and suspecting there might be more to the story, I decided to hire a private investigator to look into my husband's activities. Sometime after my husband returned to work, a typhoon directly hit our area. The impact was devastating. Crops were uprooted, windows in the workroom were broken, and debris was scattered everywhere. The damage was so extensive that normal farm work was impossible. Neighboring farms were in similar condition, with families and employees all working together from early morning to clean up. Yet unbelievably, my mother-in-law dumped all the cleanup work on me alone. "Hurry up and clean this place so we can get back to work. Since you're just good for cleaning anyway, you useless thing, at least do this efficiently." My mother-in-law berated me while leisurely sipping her tea. My husband had left early in the morning, claiming he had a meeting with clients, showing no intention of helping with the typhoon damage cleanup. Their attitude finally made something snap inside me. I checked something on the map app installed on my smartphone, then declared to my mother-in-law, "I understand. Since a useless person like me can't be of any help here, I'll return to my parents' home." With those words, I left behind my dumbfounded mother-in-law, taking the bags I had quietly packed in advance. Let them regret my absence from the bottom of their hearts, I thought to myself, secretly smirking at what was about to unfold. Sometime after returning to my parents' home, my husband called me in tears, sounding desperate. I could hear my mother-in-law wailing in the background. Apparently, their farm's income had plummeted since I left, putting them in the red. "As soon as you left, our income suddenly dropped. Neither Mom nor I understand why this is happening. Were you doing something special?" I was freshly disappointed by my husband's bewildered attitude. As I had suspected, despite leaving everything to me, he hadn't grasped anything about what I actually did. I replied with a voice full of irritation and sadness, "Don't be ridiculous. Who do you think was selling all the produce from that farm? Are you telling me you never noticed how dramatically sales increased after I arrived?" As my husband fell silent at my scornful words, I explained exactly what work I had been doing at their farm. Using my business consulting experience and computer skills, I had been steadily improving their business by expanding sales channels through the internet and social media, and developing better production management systems. As a result, I had succeeded in improving product quality and building a brand image for their farm's produce. The demand for their products had nearly doubled compared to when I first married into the family. However, with my departure, there was no one left to operate and maintain the systems I had built. Naturally, their produce stopped selling. Furthermore, to verify that my methods could be replicated, I had started implementing the same approach on my family's own farmland, with my previously unemployed brother managing the work. Though he had been reluctant at first, he agreed to help and ended up genuinely enjoying farming and farm management. This way, I was able to produce high-quality crops and sell them efficiently through various channels at my family's farm, earning decent income. So losing the income from my in-laws' farm didn't affect me at all. Besides, having cut ties with them, I had no intention of relying on their farm's earnings anyway. The only ones in trouble were my mother-in-law and husband, left with farmland and unsellable crops. My husband seemed stunned by my explanation and remained silent for a while before pleading in a tearful voice, "I had no idea you were doing such amazing work. I'm sorry for not noticing. Mom and I will work harder than ever from now on, so please come back." To his desperate plea, I coldly replied, "No way. Don't think I've forgotten how your mother treated me, and I won't forgive you for turning a blind eye to it either. Besides, who would want to return to a cheating husband like you?" My words threw my husband into complete panic, and he tried desperately to deny it. "How did you? No, that's wrong. I've never cheated. There must be some mistake." As he fumbled for words in distress, I pressed further, "I have all the evidence of your affair. There's no point in trying to deny it now." The private investigator's report had revealed my husband's infidelity. I had photos of him meeting the same woman multiple times, and I knew she had frequently visited his hospital room during his stay. Apparently, my mother-in-law not only knew about the affair but approved of it. That explained why she had prevented me from visiting him in the hospital. It seemed that when the other woman learned that I managed all of my tech-illiterate husband's email addresses and app accounts, she decided to create a communication channel I couldn't monitor. That's why she had installed that messaging app on his phone. When I found out, I borrowed his phone under the pretense of maintenance, opened the messaging app, and confirmed their exchanges, copying all the data. Since my husband had a habit of reusing accounts and passwords, I could easily log in even to this new app one hadn't known about. His carelessness was truly astounding. When checking the app, I had also set it up so I could monitor his GPS location from my smartphone. Using this, I had confirmed multiple instances of him being at meeting spots arranged with his mistress through the app. In other words, on the day of the typhoon when I was left alone to clean up and finally left, my husband wasn't at a business meeting, he was on a date with his mistress. When I realized this, I completely gave up on him. "I'm completely done with your family, your mother, and you. Please divorce me." My words left my husband speechless on the other end of the phone. Afterward, despite my husband's tearful pleas and my mother-in-law's reluctant attempts at apology, I managed to secure a divorce. Thanks to the private investigator's report and my lawyer's help, I was able to claim substantial compensation from both my husband and his mistress. According to rumors, my ex-husband lost his mistress after losing so much money in compensation payments. Then, trying to revive the farm to recoup his losses, he made the poor decision to purchase expensive farming equipment, but couldn't use it properly and ended up in debt. Eventually, their farm became unsustainable, and they were forced to close down the business and sell both their house and farmland. Now, my penniless ex-husband and his mother reportedly live in an old, cramped rental house, struggling to make ends meet. As for me, I started working as a freelance business consultant, expanding the combination of computer skills and farming knowledge I had developed at both farms to help other farmers and implement similar approaches in projects to revitalize declining shopping districts. This work, which allows me to contribute to regional development while utilizing my expertise, feels like my true calling. I'm enjoying each day with far greater satisfaction than when I was married to my ex-husband.